These people want to lead normal lives, but they can't, because they believe they are the objects of otherworldly interest. They are convinced that something not of this earth has abducted them. Their story starts with a sighting.
Huge sphere of light. I mean, it was gigantic. It was the size of a two-story house.
Then hours vanished from their lives, missing time.
My next conscious memory was landing very hard in the vehicle on the road, as if I'd been dropped from above. Missing about an hour and a half, and I could not account for.
These events had plunged them into a mystery that has interrupted their lives, forcing them to dig for answers to questions beyond our imagination.
My first question was, is it possible for people to be kidnapped by a UFO?
But the deeper they go into the mystery, the more questions they raise. So they turn to UFO investigators.
I get hundreds of reports each year from people just crying out for help.
Searching their past, they have come to the terrifying conclusion that they have been followed since childhood.
Ray asked if there was anything strange about our childhood. It was more like, what wasn't strange about our childhood?
To unlock buried memories, they have turned to hypnosis and uncovered a possibility they find difficult to accept, yet impossible to dismiss: alien abduction. Now they are haunted by the only conclusion they can draw. Their lives will never be the same. But this man's story has just begun. Like the others, he has experienced missing time. But unlike them, he has not yet attempted to delve into his subconscious to retrieve the hidden memories, because he fears what he might find.
I want to know, but I don't want to know. It could help me. It could utterly shatter me.
Maybe he just lost track of time. Or maybe, like these others, he will conclude that he has been abducted. As this night falls, they will all tell their stories, the UFO experience as they perceive it. Perhaps they are victims of a mass delusion. Or perhaps they herald the next chapter in a bizarre tale that's haunted civilization throughout history. No one knows how this story ends, but if what these people believe is true, it will be the greatest revelation ever told, and forever change life as we know it. Are we alone in the universe? It's one of the greatest mysteries of all time. For eons, humans have seen things in the sky and wondered, is someone coming? The story of UFOs is unending, and it grows stranger with each decade. And in the last 30 years, there has been a riveting new twist: alien abduction. Abduction. It's the most bizarre and unsettling wrinkle in the UFO mystery. No one knows exactly how many people claim to have been abducted, but the number has grown steadily larger in the years since the first reports began to surface. Betty and Barney Hill, one of the first classic abduction cases. In the early 1960s, the couple, a social worker and a mailman, reported being followed by an aircraft while traveling in New Hampshire one night. They saw a bright light and realized afterward they could not account for 2 missing hours. At first, they tried to ignore the event. Then Betty began to have terrifying nightmares. Buried in her subconscious were memories of being taken aboard an alien ship and examined. Most people who heard of the case were unwilling to journey into such bizarre territory. But defense analyst Raymond Fowler and astronomer Dr. J. Allen Hynek heard the Hills' account personally. Both men were scientifically minded and considered themselves skeptics. But they were about to undergo a transformation of their beliefs, a transformation so profound that each would eventually become a legendary UFO investigator.
I remember I listened to the Hills give their testimony before they were investigated, and they gave it to a small group, and I was sitting there with a fellow investigator looking at these people, and we sort of looked at each other and I said, how can these nice people lie with such straight faces? And we felt that it just couldn't be. It just couldn't be.
About it. They earnestly and fully believe that this happened to them. And certainly something did happen to them. But whether it was an actual physical case of abduction, we just don't know.
But reports from seemingly credible sources kept coming in. Reports that all carried the same benchmarks. Someone sees a bright light in the sky. It overtakes them. The next thing they know, hours have vanished from their life. They try to ignore the incident, but find themselves haunted by bizarre nightmares or strange childhood memories.
If we only had 1 or 2 cases where people have relived complementary abduction experiences with the same benchmarks, we may say this is a remarkable coincidence. But we have hundreds of people who go through the same experience, sometimes in the same order, seeing the same things.
Calling about a UFO sighting yesterday. I don't know who else to call, but I've been familiar with your work for years. Yes, it's not something...
And as the number of reported cases has grown, so too has public interest in the strange phenomenon of UFOs. Today, more and more people, like Ray Fowler and the late Dr. Hynek, feel compelled to investigate the question of alien abduction. Now retired from the defense contracting business, Ray devotes much of his free time to investigating and then publishing abduction reports. There's no shortage of work. People keep turning to him for help.
These people have flashbacks or dreams or partial memories of a UFO abduction experience. They're troubled, they don't know where to go, they try to talk to their friends, their ministers and so forth, and no one really will listen to them. And they come and they ask me to listen, and I listen.
Sometimes Ray launches a full-scale investigation, attempting to uncover what happened during an episode of missing time. Ray did just that when Jim Weiner approached him for help. Jim didn't know it yet, but he and his twin brother Jack had become part of the next chapter in a UFO story, the chapter on alien abduction. The people you're about to meet once led normal lives, but something interrupted those lives. They believe they've been abducted by otherworldly beings. Ray's investigations have so overtaken his life that he must now force himself to make time for his family, his garden, and this homemade planetarium. But one case held so many clues to the abduction mystery that he could not turn away. Ray calls it the Allagash abduction.
The Weiners were very interesting because here we have identical twins.
Jim and Jack Weiner, identical twins, as close as brothers can be. They came from the same egg. They finish each other's sentences. Both are artists, and both believe they've been abducted. Abducted because they are twins. They like to think of themselves as pretty average guys. Jim teaches computer art and lives in the city with his fiancée. Jack is also an artist. He works as an optical machinist and lives in the country with his wife, Mary. Identical twins. Some UFO investigators suspect a link between twins and abduction. If you wanted to study the human animal, you might find twins to be especially interesting specimens.
If you look at the UFO abduction phenomenon as a whole, you'll see that there seems to be a tremendous interest in the reproductive systems of human males and human females.